Hey, Nick Collier here again. It's story time. We're standing in front of the back side of my shop. Actually, this is the studio part of my shop where I paint and do other, more refined things. And I built that dome, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago. And while I was building this building, the entire shop that you've seen many times, it was one summer. I'm working on the building, putting up structure, and it was just putting up framing. And I happened to look down at one point, and this little baby bear, he couldn't have been, any bigger than that, wanders up. And I'm kind of standing there because, hey, he's cute, but I'm sure mom's around somewhere. And we're gonna have some problems if mom gets upset. So I kind of back up a little bit and I just watch him, and he's cute, and he wanders on up to the compost pile and starts eating compost. Well, actually, the first thing he did was to go up to my wild raspberry stretch on the hillside and start eating raspberries. And I thought that was kind of cute, and he was away from me, so I continued working, and I didn't really pay too much attention to him from that point on, except the next day he's back. And I'm thinking, well, where's mom? And we're in the woods, there are bear hunters, there are cars, things happen to bears, especially in these neighborhoods where everybody gets upset because the bear gets into their houses. And they, by the way, left the door open. So anyhow, so this little bear comes back, and he's in the compost pile, and I kind of check him out and, talk to him a little bit and go on about my work. And it kind of went like that for a while. I mean, every day he'd show up. And after a while, we realized that mom had been killed or something had happened. And so we went into town and got scraps from the local grocery store and brought it out and poured it on the compost pile, so he actually had something to eat. And, it was probably a big mistake, but, he was cute. He was like maybe 50 pounds. And so, we kept feeding him, but, he was a wild animal, so we didn't touch him. We didn't, try to interact with him too much, just by saying hi to him, letting him know we were around. And I continued working on this building all summer long. And so the little bear just keeps coming back, and after a while he's hanging out totally. He's just staying on the property. And a year or so later I found his nest. It was kind of up on the hill here, and it was like this little pad underneath the tree, kind of a little bit of protection. Anyhow, all summer long he's eating and he's having a great time, and I'm building the building. And we get to the end of summer, and bears typically go up into the high country for winter because it's more snowy up there, and they can get in and hibernate. So he disappears. By the time he leaves, he's probably 150 pounds, which is not a giant bear, but he's good size, and he's very friendly. So he takes off, and we know that he's gone up to high country. And sure enough, next spring he shows up, and he hangs out, and I'm continuing to work on my building. This building took about 4 years to build. Pretty much by myself, a little bit of help from a friend lifting stuff, the heavy stuff. And so he shows back up. I'm happy to see him. He's eating in the compost pile again. And at one point, he he discovers the chicken coop, which is the new chicken coop. The bear-proof chicken coop is up on the hill here. The old chicken coop is kind of down on the bottom of the property. And he discovers the chicken coop. But you got to understand, this is not a bear that's had any training. So what happens is he breaks into the chicken coop and doesn't eat the chickens. He eats the compost on the ground. And this went on for several days, you know, and I knew there was no way I was going to keep him out, because he was pretty big by that point. He'd gone through the whole winter and he was hungry. And so I figured, well, at some point or another, the chickens are going to take off, you know, they're going to disappear. And sure enough, about a week later, he finds the chickens. And literally, while he's rooting around on the ground and trying to find, you know, scraps that we left for the chickens are roosting like right above his head at night. And, and he doesn't see them. But when he did see him, we had 10 chickens at that point. And when he did see him, that was it. They were gone that night, except for one poor lonely little chicken. It had been, somehow it had roosted somewhere else in the coop or something. And the next morning we walk over to the coop, and I'm, you know, expecting this to happen at any point. And the chickens are gone, and here's this one little hen. You know, just mourning, like lonely, and we just felt so bad for it. So we put an ad in the local, you know, neighborhood thing and said, hey, we got an extra chicken, and it's a good layer, and we just want to get rid of it because it's the only one, and we knew we couldn't keep the bear out anymore, so no getting more chickens. So we found a home for it. And now the bear, or the chicken coop, is kind of just sitting there. And you know, so that winter I beef up the chicken coop and put heavy duty wire on it. And I'm like, oh yeah, the bear's not gonna get in there. The next spring comes, and you know, and I got 10 more chickens, and just about the time they started to lay, about midsummer, he shows up. And I'm almost positive it's the same bear. And he busts into that coop and eats all 10 chickens. And I was like, oh man. So I fixed the chicken coop that winter again and get some more chickens. And next spring he comes in, eats all the chickens. And so I was like, okay, that's it. No more chickens. Not until I can build a a chicken coop that's bear proof. And so, and you saw in a couple of videos ago, the bear-proof chicken coop. I'll give you some pictures of it. And so I spent the next 2 years and $1,500 building this bear-proof chicken coop. And at the end, I mean, it's a pretty cool coop. I had fun doing it. But at the end, I realized, or you know, somebody says, well, why didn't you just get a electric fence? And I'm like, really? It was $140 for an electric fence, and it would have taken like an hour to put it up. And I'm like, But, you know, I built this really cool coop, and it's been there for 10 years now, and it'll probably be there for another 100. So that bear kept coming back every year. Bigger and bigger and bigger. I mean, you know, he's probably up to about 600 pounds by the time he, you know, stopped coming for whatever reason. And we won't even speculate on that. So that's the story of why I built the bear-proof chicken coop, because of that little cub. This is Nick Collier. Checking out.